Well, let's bring in our correspondent in Kyiv, Gulliver Cragg, now to talk more about this. Hi, Gulliver. So just bring us up to speed with how Ukrainians are reacting to these revelations.
Well, to Ukrainians, perhaps they're not so much of a revelation as to other people who haven't been watching this so closely, because for a very long time, Ukrainians have suspected that Steve Witkoff was working for the Russians. Every time he meets with Vladimir Putin, he seems to come away repeating Russian narratives. So some people thought that he was quite deliberately working for the Russians. Others perhaps thought that he was just what is known as a useful idiot, with the emphasis very firmly on the idiot part. The man is incapable of remembering the names of the Ukrainian regions that he thinks Ukraine should give up. In a sense, what is revealed in this phone call is that if people who, some of them do suspect that Donald Trump might also be actually essentially wanting to do what the Russians want. And it seems from this phone call that that's not a given, that Donald Trump needed to be flattered, that he needed to be, manipulated in a way into acquiescing to the peace plan that Steve Witkoff, together with the Russians, were apparently planning to propose. And then they did come up with the peace plan. The Russians apparently drafted most of it. It involves a lot more than just Donetsk and a land swap. But the question that a lot of Ukrainians and people around the world are now asking is, who leaked this transcript and why? There are all sorts of theories about that, but a theory that is gaining currency in Ukraine, despite the fact that the Russians have condemned the leaking of the document, saying it hampers the peace process, is that it was actually the Russians themselves who leaked it, because they didn't actually like the way that the Ukrainians and the Americans seem to be taking seriously this 24-point plan, despite it having been denounced around the world by many of Ukraine's European allies in particular. And they wanted to discredit the Americans, discredit in a way, and cause more infighting among the Americans in order to make sure that they didn't come under any real serious pressure from the Americans to actually sign the peace plan that was anything resembling something that they had put forward. It is increasingly clear here in Kyiv that the Russians are not going to sign a revised version of the plan, and that they probably wouldn't have signed even the 28-point plan that they initially put forward. That was not their intention. They intended to weaken Ukrainians' morale, reveal the lay of the land in the United States and European politics, all sorts of other intentions. And what people are expecting here is that in a few days' time, we're going to be back to square one with the war continuing. The Russians clearly do not want to end it. Which would be more of a relief, of course, to Ukrainians if it wasn't becoming increasingly clear that the situation on the eastern and southern front lines is deteriorating quite rapidly, and the Russians are advancing more rapidly than they were.
Indeed, Gulliver, because Ukrainian forces are facing mounting pressure on the ground, aren't they?
Yes, absolutely. And one of the main reasons for that is that they haven't got enough people. An initiative to recruit more young people that was introduced in February this year, a contract called 18 to 24, where you get to sign up just for 1 year with a big bonus for signing up and then a pretty high salary, doesn't seem to have attracted the numbers that they were hoping for. The General Staff initially talked of 20,000 applications, but now they have not followed that up with any numbers about the confirmed people who actually went through the whole recruitment process and are now serving, leading media to speculate that a lot of people, while they may have expressed an interest in the beginning, didn't actually end up joining the armed forces. And we don't have any numbers. Of course, they regard it as a military secret, and they don't publish numbers about military recruitment. There are military recruitment posters, very witty ones, all around Kyiv, but the only figure that we seem to have that seems to be confirmed is that Germany has been saying that 100,000 Ukrainians, young Ukrainian men, have left the country, and most of them gone to Germany since restrictions were lifted on people aged 18 to 22 who've been allowed to leave Ukraine, men aged 18 to 22, since August this year.
Gulliver, thank you so much for bringing us that update. Good to have you. Thank you for that.